Smarties, today we are discussing the importance of prioritizing and acknowledging the small wins or the micro wins for learners. We chat about what micro wins are, how to find them, how to highlight them, and why it's important to focus on micro wins for learners and their families. If you are interested in working with either one of our practices, go ahead and schedule a phone call on our website. Steph practices www.myedtherapist.com, and her practice does all the things virtually and in person in Redondo Beach and Manhattan Beach, California. And my practice is Kapp Educational Therapy Group, where we specialize in learners 5th grade through adulthood who struggle with executive functioning skills challenges. You can sign up for a phone call at our website, www.kappedtherapy.com. Let's dig in.
You want to learn faster, but sometimes working harder is just not the answer. You have to learn smarter. The Educational Therapy Podcast.
Hi, Smarties. Welcome to episode 339 of Learn Smarter, the Educational Therapy Podcast. I'm Stephanie Pitts.
And I'm Rachel Kapp.
Today we're talking about some micro wins.
So I always like to share the origin idea of this episode. This is something that has come up enough with parents and with our team. Those are the two people, the clinicians working with our families. And it's a really important skill that we have to learn as clinicians, but families also need to learn, which is, yes, we're focused on long term, but we have to acknowledge the little micro wins along the way.
For sure.
So if you're there to improve study skills, there's 1.5 million little micro wins that you're going to have along the way to that ultimate big time goal of learning how to study appropriately for your brain, right? So, Steph, how would you define micro wins?
I think the thing that's really important is knowing that they might be smaller than you would ever think they could be. And if you're a parent, you know your learner best. And you know what other wins might look like in other arenas of their life. But if school is challenging, you need to make that win smaller. So one of the things that I've heard from parents is, oh, on the baseball field, he's so good. He gets trophies and wins MVP and whatnot. But then in school, he's not doing well and he comes home crying every day, etc. Right? So in the sports area, yes, those wins are huge, but you're not going to have equal wins at school. So when we're talking about what kind of win your child might need to celebrate, you need to really think about what's hard and how you can celebrate and give them the feeling of success in a measurable way for them. And so that's why we're not just saying small wins, we're saying micro wins, because there's a difference. A small win could be they did well on a test, or they got their homework in that day or that week. But some kids need micro wins, and those are teeny tiny, and that's where you have to start.
And even for the kids who you don't think need the little acknowledgments along the way, they respond so well when you change the narrative and you change the goal. Mm-hmm. So they know that they're working with either one of our practices because something is hard or difficult, or something was revealed in testing, or there's some sort of deficit happening. When we focus on deficits, we're going to impact self-esteem. Mm-hmm. We're going to impact self-concept. We're going to impact their ability to advocate for themselves. We're going to impact so many different elements of their lives, including their social behaviors, their behaviors within the family system, all those sorts of things. So focusing on these little wins along the way will change the narrative. And it's the snowball effect. Right? So we've used this analogy over the years, but you're at the top of the hill and that snowball is really tiny, and we should expect it to be tiny. And as it rolls down the hill, it gathers up more and more and more and more snow. And suddenly we have the big snowball that we need for the base of our snowman. Let's just, for the analogy, right?
I like it. I like it.
So, Steph, can we talk about some micro wins that our team is having with learners all the time that we can pause and we can take stock of and we can celebrate with them, and we can also acknowledge with them their own growth? What would those be? Just some ideas.
Yeah, some ideas might be for a kid writing their name on the paper. That could be one of two things. That could be starting and they wrote their name on the paper. So that's actually starting homework. Or they're the kid that turns in things and forgets to write their name on the paper.
Yeah.
And they don't get credit. So they wrote their name on the paper. So it could be something as small as that. It could also be, I want to make sure that people understand that you don't go from a bunch of reminders to no reminders.
Right.
So if you need to remind your kid to do something or start homework or to finish something or to turn something in or whatever it is, if you're normally doing 5, maybe you only had to do 3, and that's a micro win. Maybe they get out their own supplies for homework, like they got out a pencil, they got out their book. Maybe they wrote their homework down, or one thing for their homework was written down. Maybe they stayed on task for a certain amount of time, because maybe that's a struggle. Maybe completing a task, or maybe setting their own timer.
Yep.
Maybe doing a chore, maybe actually handing in an assignment or turning it in, or maybe emailing a teacher just to advocate for themselves.
And sometimes the micro win could be they're not even the ones writing the email. Maybe they just brought up the draft and typed the teacher's email in, and then you step in and help.
100%.
Any time that they are taking more ownership or taking a step towards something that might be uncomfortable. And this is where it gets really frustrating for parents, because I can speak to myself. We want to reward a job well done, right? We don't want to look at the component parts of a task. So this can be really hard, especially a lot of the families coming into educational therapy. They've been through a lot, right? Like they've been through tutors, they've been through maybe OT or speech therapy, or they've gone through the IEP process or the 504 process or whatever. We always like to say, like, we're the last stop because we're the right people to partner with them, which is why we're the last stop.
Yep.
And so we have to acknowledge what these families and our learners have been through prior to us. And they're coming in with their own thoughts and feelings and behaviors and long established patterns. So this might be something challenging to teach the families that we work with. But this is part of our role. For
sure. And I have a client who is deathly afraid of her history teacher. And she didn't get a very good grade on a quiz because she turned it in late because she was still working on the video part. And so I said to her, let's talk to your teacher. And she just got this look like she was just scared.
Yeah.
And I said, why don't we email him? Are you open to doing that? And she agreed. I helped her write it, but she agreed to email her teacher, who she's so scared of. And the teacher had a great reaction in the response. Okay, no problem. I'll score it. Just like try to be more mindful of time in the future. And that was such a huge win for her because she was willing to do it. And look what came of it. So now next time when she needs to email a teacher, she's going to be more willing because she already did it once and it worked out well.
There you go. So we want to focus and really make sure we talk about why these micro wins are so important. And the first one is that it's absolutely going to boost self-esteem when we start focusing on these little micro wins, on these little victories. We want to reduce overwhelm. And a micro win can really help mitigate that. We want to create momentum. That's that snowball that we always talk about. We want to reinforce positive change and positive behavior. So if you catch a glimpse of the good, we're going to acknowledge that. A glimpse of the forward progression.
Yeah, this is what it feels like.
We want to increase accountability and metacognitive awareness. So we want them to know they are making progress. That's an important part of this whole process. And it will improve emotional regulation. And most importantly, which loops back to that first thing I said, which is that this boosts self-esteem, is that it creates that sense of achievement for learners who maybe don't get that feeling very often.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
All students want that. They want to achieve. And so the thing when I talk to parents, they say, I know my kid wants to do well because I can see it, even though they say they don't. But they do.
Yeah.
It's in there. And remember, we always ask, get curious about when it's not happening, why. And so really being very thoughtful about what kind of wins your student needs and be intentional. And start working there.
It's our role as the ed therapist, the learning specialist on the team to hold space for these moments. Anything else you would add, Steph?
Go get those micro wins. And you know what? I'm just going to say, get micro wins for yourself because sometimes we all need them.
Totally. Have a great week, Smarties.
Have a great week.